Greetings. Do you have your ticket? You don't have one? No problem, my friend. Just hit the subscription button below. Come on in. Hello, everyone. DFG, Gideon's Flight here. Hey, guys. I thought this would be an appropriate time to have this conversation again with the recent, I'm going to use the word passing away of the entrepreneur, rapper, Nipsey Hussle. And, you know, with all of the outcry, the emotions that his killing has generated, you know, I've listened to many of the videos that are flooding online, flooding, you know, the internet, with all of the people who are very discouraged at his passing. And a lot of the comments that I'm hearing, and I'm sure you're hearing the same thing too, regards that, you know, the hopelessness that here we had someone who was investing in the community, someone who was giving back to the community, someone who was, you know, being a role model in the community, and now he's gone. I agree with all of those sentiments, but this is something that I would be remiss if I did not remind us of something very, very important. And when I say us in this regard, I'm talking about the Aboriginal people, the native people of Turtle Island, this country, which is called America, okay, by the Europeans, was amply named by the Europeans as America. Guys, you know, leaders were never intended, and in most other countries, leaders are not the entertainment group or the athletic group. And I'm not saying that an entertainer and an athlete cannot possess leadership qualities. But I am saying to you that we cannot look at entertainers and athletes as our leaders solely. And I know there's probably going to be a little pushback that, no, that's not the case. But if you want to be truly honest, if we're going to be very transparent with one another, let's think about that. You know what I'm saying? When you hear our people, talking about Aboriginal people, copper color, you know, so-called Americans, you know, when you start talking about people like Jay-Z, you start talking about people like LeBron James, and I can name many, many others, everybody stop and they listen. But then when you start talking about community leaders, you know what I'm saying? You start talking about, you know, local leaders, you know, people who don't have a title, but people who are in our recreational centers, people who are at our small, you know, recreational parks, the people who are participating in other community-related programs, who sacrifice every single day, wake up with one thing in mind: how can I make life better, you know, for the children, for the young people, and for the elderly in their communities. Those people hardly ever get our attention. Why? You know, for many, many reasons, but I think the number one reason is because we don't go out of our way to try to identify those individuals. We don't go out of our way to recognize those individuals. And most importantly, we have not shown honor to those individuals. Now, let me say something else to you. You know, for you guys who believe in the scripture teaches us, and this is Hosea 4:6. And if you know anything about me, and I have to qualify for this, this is not about religion. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And for you who practice religion, I give you all honor and respect as a right to do so. Myself, personally, that's not my cup of tea. I am a spiritual man. I believe in the Creator. I believe in Yahweh. I believe that Aboriginal people are the original people spoken of in the scripture. I'm convinced that we are those people. Now, that doesn't give us, in my opinion, any kind of particular advantage. It's not something for us to walk around with our heads, you know, stuck up, you know, or our nose, you know, in the air. It simply means that you, myself, those Hebrews, you know, are carved out people, really to be an example and to be a model of what humanity is supposed to look like. But that same scripture that I mentioned, 4:6, says, my people they perish for a lack of knowledge because they reject knowledge. The reason why we're having the struggles that we're having is for that very reason. The second part of that statement, rejecting knowledge. And so when you hear me speak to you about, leadership and who our leaders are and who our leaders should be, the first thing some people will do will reject that. Now, I don't want to hear that, he's an old head. That's silliness. The only thing that's old about me is probably these gray hairs, on my chin. But my heart is forever young. And I love our people. Mankind in general, I respect. But I love our people. So this has nothing to do with the age. This has much to do with the knowledge and the sharing of that knowledge. So let me get back on course here. So when we start looking at our leaders, we cannot afford to go down that rabbit hole of looking at it just in the entertainment industry. Because if we do, then we marginalize ourselves. We make ourselves almost in a way to be looked upon and made mockery of. And unfortunately, like the incident that happens with Nipsey Hussle, then all of a sudden, the whole world gets to talk about our people because of a conflict within our group of people. Then everybody gets to criticize our people as a whole. And why can they do that? Why is everybody talking about, you can't invest in the so-called black community. You can't, black people, have to take a big risk when they go into those communities. Now, we're talking about a conflict that happened with two men. But yet the world is acting as though we had the second assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. And this is no disrespect to Nipsey Hussle. That's not the point here. The point here is that when we elevate entertainers, then we give people the opportunity to mock us, to make mockery out of us, as though that we're limited to that scope. That's all we're good for is entertainment. Entertaining who? Entertaining them. Entertaining ourselves. Yet, we are a people of culture. We have created culture all over the world. Wherever you see Aboriginal people, Native people, you're going to see culture related to that. Except when a people rejects knowledge. And I say that here in America, the so-called African American, like I said before, less than 4% of us came from Africa. People who look like us, I'm sorry, not us. Most of us are native to this land. So-called Indians, tribal people. And a lot of you reject that because you reject your history. You will not take the time to go and do research. Look it up. There are many scholars out there, and I call them scholars because they're willing to do the work, they're willing to do the research. Guys like Dane Calloway. I'll use him. And he's not the only one. There are many, many others who have put in the work, put in the time to go out there and show and reveal some of these truths to us, to move away some of these lies about us, telling us that all of us were from Africa, that we had no history prior to African slave ships arriving on this continent, that we had no spiritual awareness until 1600, when Christianity was brought to the native people into this land. A religion or a faith that we adopted so that the Europeans would accept us and not move us off of our lands, so that they would not call us heathens. So if we wanted to stay in our lands, one of the conditions were we had to adapt to Christianity and walk away from our spirituality, as though we had no history before 1600. And I want you to think about that. If I'm incorrect, then tell me in your public education, your American education, did they teach you about your history before 1600? I'm waiting. I want you to tell me in European history that you've learned in the public school system here in America, tell me about your history before 1600 that does not consist of being in a slave ship stacked like sardines. It's almost like we were non-existent before 1600. Yet in those same history books, we hear about all of their leaders. We do. From the Roman emperors to the Greek philosophers, right? To the Spanish explorers. We learned all about those individuals. The English kings and queens, that some of them have been intentionally decolorized. I'll say it like that. Yes, it's also we were taught a history by Europeans for Europeans. And this is no disrespect to the Europeans. I mean, at the end of the day, they're no different than the Asians, the Africans, and the other tribes around the planet. You're supposed to teach your history. You know, I understand that. I respect them for that. But we have a responsibility not to depend upon Europeans to teach us our history. But when someone like myself bring that to your attention, we find ourselves in conflict and fights, struggling. You know, some of us are being marginalized. Some of us are being criticized because we're saying we're the Aboriginal people here, as though we're denying African roots. I can't deny an African root if I'm not from Africa. And again, you know, if you want to be able to be respected by the world, then by God, you have to know who you are. When I use the word by God, I'm only using God in terms of, like you say, goddamn. I'm not talking about Yahweh. Okay? I would never confuse Yahweh with the word God, D-O-G-G-O-D. That would never happen. Okay? Let me come back to you. You know, some of you may ask a basic question, an honest question, a respectful question. Okay, Dale. Well, how do I learn about my history if the only history available to me is the public school history that I learned? Well, I'll tell you one place you can learn this history. Pick up a Bible. I know, there you go. Oh, there you go. Look, believe whatever the hell your ass wants to believe. You know, I had another word I was going to say, but it's too vulgar. But you can, you know, for you who want to accuse me of trying to promote the Bible, you're full of shit. If you want to learn your history, Aboriginal people, pick up a Bible and read the Old Testament. That is your history. You were misled to told that was some, I guess it's from, I always get the word, I can't always pronounce the word, Khazarian, I think I said Khazarian, and that is the Europeans who are currently in Israel. You think that history is their history. That history is not their history. That history is your history. So if you want to learn about your history, you have a well-written, well-documented history in the Old Testament. It's complicated. There's a lot of drama, a lot of, I can't even think of it. Read it. I mean, once you start reading it, I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to walk away from it. Your history has a lot of enlightenment, a lot of strength, a lot of character, a lot of conquering, a lot of humility. It's right there for you. But you have to be willing to take the risk to go and learn about yourself. If you're going to expect the respect of anyone else, you have to first respect yourself. And that's where history comes into play. That's where you come into play. That's where I come into play. And we have to learn about leaders again, who come from grassroots, leaders who come from among us, whose intention has always been the people. You heard me talk about the shepherd. You lose the one, leave the 99, go find the one, bring back to the 99, understanding that the 99 will understand that if they got lost sheep, they will be treated the same way. That's your leader, the servant. Who will be the greatest? Him who will be the servant of all. That's your leader. Entertainments look for self-edification, self-glorification. Mostly that's why they're in the entertainment industry. And most of them are controlled. Your leaders need to be not controlled. They just need to love you, love me, love us. So my challenge to you is to take this little bit of, drop of wisdom and then go out there and look for your leaders. Go look for Fred Hampton. Go look for Martin. Go look for Malcolm. Go look for Moses, King David, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Go look for them. They're there. Go find them. It's your responsibility. It's my responsibility. Our leaders are there. And this is not to exclude our mothers, because a lot of those mothers are leaders as well. But they'll never be uncovered if we're looking over here when the truth is right in front of your face. Love you. Talk to you later. Bye now.